there's so much to learn with fashion design, and like I always knew that, but I think that my eyes have been like opening more because here's Lola. um I think it looks not great. And okay, I basted together the top. So here's what we're looking like. I think it's pretty good. I have a piece. I have a lighter. Okay, so collection and how I'm gonna make it. Um, Ideally, we you should have already seen the collection with how I'm planning on doing things and the progression of how I got to where I am. So we're gonna be starting with the first look. Um, I'm also assuming that I'm going to put this as the first look, but this look is based on my mom's the outfit she was wearing the night she met my dad. I've never designed a collection before, and this is something I've always wanted to do. And I read this book to do so. I would love to like do more of this in the future and just like experiment because I feel like there's so much to learn with fashion design, and like I always knew that, but I think that my eyes have been like opening more because I've been trying to learn a lot in general, but I've also been trying to like pay more attention to fashion shows and just different like seasons and think more about it because I feel like I for a while felt like, oh, I don't know if I get fashion even though I sew, and I feel like I always use that as a cop out to be like, oh, do I really understand it? But like even just thinking about things like there's like a deeper level of things of fashion history that I don't have the best context on, but I'm like I can look at a collection and see different motifs and like feel some type of way and look at like our current world and all of this stuff. So there's so much to learn, and so this first look is based on the dress that my mom's wearing. She said she's wearing a black and white fitted dress. I think she said it was sleeveless and not strapless. Either way, I wasn't trying to recreate exactly what she was wearing, but I was just trying to like think a little bit about like something that I could make that I would like, but also could be worn to a club, specifically with dancing. My parents do love to dance, and so I imagine that she was dancing. But my thoughts, pretty much, and how I want to go about this because I've done nothing. I have not made anything yet. I've just done a lot of brainstorming and sketches and all this stuff at this point in time. Um, I want to use my half scale dress form. I don't know if I've said I have a half scale dress form. I also have a full scale dress form that I have shown before. And what I'm thinking is for the pattern pieces that I can draft them and prototype them on the half scale, and then if I'm able to use most likely Adobe Illustrator to make them full size and print them out. That might be way out of my wheelhouse. I don't know yet. But if not, or if that is outside of my wheelhouse, I would just then draft to my measurements. But I thought that doing the half scale would be good because it'll use less fabric and it would give me more room to tweak things if I need to. So, um, this piece, I will probably draft the top on the half scale and then just draft the skirt at a half size and try it on there. But what I'm thinking is strapless top. I want the little ruffle on the bottom to be a flounce. I'd probably use a zipper. I also want that to be asymmetrical, but I want it to be long enough that it'll cover like the whole waistband of the skirt. Um, Pretty much, I almost want it to look like a really short dress, but it would be like way too short to be a dress. So I will drape the pattern on there, and then for the skirt, what I'm thinking is I want it to be at least one flounce, so like a spiral, which I think is going to be kind of hard to pattern that because when I've done flounces before, I kind of just draw the spiral until I think it's big enough, and then I take off the excess. But I'm going to want this to like roughly fit. So that's going to be interesting to try to get And then for the waistband of the skirt, I think I want to do shearing around all of it so that way it's elastic and it fits, but it's a little more visual interest. And hopefully with the shearing, it would like stay in place more than just like a like regular elastic waistband. And I didn't really want to do a zipper for that. So I'm going to, the half scale dress form I have is not in my size. And I'm gonna first pad it to my measurements. I padded my dress form before when I did my Valentine's Day dress last year, so I'll link that. So I'm probably gonna do a similar um, method with using the batting to kind of build up to half of my measurements and probably use a steamer to give shape where needed. Um, so after I do that, I also have a little shirt, a baby. I have a baby onesie on it, so I will I'll show that once it's done. But yeah, I'm gonna try to get that roughly to half of my measurements, and then from there I will start drafting the top, and then I'll probably try to pattern the skirt afterwards.
Okay, first of all, I'm using a new mic, so if you can tell a difference or if the audio sounds weird, let me know. So I padded my mini dress form. I have the fabric pinned on and my style lines. I use electrical tape. I think people technically use draping tape, but I have not ordered any, and I don't know. The electrical tape is surprisingly staying. I feel like most tape that I've tried doesn't stay, but either way, what I've seen people do online is drape their style lines. So there's two princess seams, which is why this doesn't go all the way across. And then they draw onto their muslin the pattern, and then they like adjust it some afterwards. So I'll do that for the front, the side, and the back. Also, fun fact, I thrifted two bed sheets for like two like relatively sheer, not like sheer, but not like fully opaque white bed sheets that I was gonna use. And then I was looking through my fabric before this because I was like, before I do the pattern, I should probably see roughly what fabric I think I want to use and if I need to buy any, just so I know like with ease and stuff for future patterns. Because this one might either do no ease or negative ease, which is a little scary. But anyways, three of the looks are fully white for a reason. My the skirt for my mom's like club dress outfit, and then the top for my dad's club outfit because they both were wearing black and white that night, and then my dad's jacket because he worked in a lab when he met my mom. And I was like, I don't have any white fabric, and there's a store, like the fabric store that I go to sometimes when I need fabric is like 30 minutes away from me. But I think they're open on Saturday and not Sunday. And I'm like, oh, but I can't go this weekend because there's supposed to be a snowstorm. And I was just like, oh my gosh, but if I'm going to work with a skirt, I want to know what fabric I'm going to, or like what type of fabric I'm going to be using. And then I was like, dang, I got two of these bed sheets and they're truly white. And I feel like they'd be perfect. So now I'm using the rest of the muslin that I have. But I'm going to start to sketch these on for all of the pieces, and then I will go and um, just make the pattern a little bit better and do my mini mock-up. I mean, I've seen people use pencil, but I think I have these pencils I got from the dollar store a while ago that are like this part comes out. So I just try to use that so it's not permanent and I can just make changes as I need to. Okay, so I made the mock up for the top and I don't love it. So I draped this and traced it out. For the bottom, I was thinking of flounce, but I don't love doing spiral flounces. And I saw a great article that I'll put up that went over how to make them and just different types. And so I kind of like the idea of an asymmetrical flounce, which uses like a half circle or a circle skirt pattern, but you just make it square. Here's Lola. um, I think it looks not great, and it doesn't flounce as much as I would like it to. So I might try just making it a circle, but I don't really know what I'm gonna do for that. But for the skirt, what I'm thinking is, so the top of the skirt would be a yoke, I think, with the size that it is. So I was thinking originally to do the yoke and then gather, like make the skirt pattern bigger and gather it in. But because I'm going to be using a non stretchy material, if I do gather it to be the same size as the yoke, I feel like it's going to be hard to get on. So what I'm thinking, and I don't know how I want to prototype this because I don't want to use my shearing thread because I don't have like too much of it. Um, but I'm thinking to do a prototype just to see how everything looks. Um, do the size, gather the skirt, but for the actual thing, do the yoke, figure out how big I would need it to be that once it's sheared, it's like a little less than my waist, and then just make the skirt the same size as that. So then when it connects, it fully goes in. So I'm not at that point yet, but I will share when I do. But I'm gonna experiment with this ruffle or this flounce. It's also way too long because I wanted this to be not long enough to be its own dress, but long enough that it could feel dress esque. So I'm probably gonna first try cutting this off, and then if I don't like it, seeing other flounce or gathering options. Also, I sewed this accidentally to the top, and so that's why I just have them. I don't know if you can tell, I have them both pinned because I didn't want to have to sew it again after that. So I'm gonna experiment with this, see what I like, and then experiment with the skirt some before I will try making them full size. Last I said I didn't like the ruffle on the bottom, but in theory, I really like the idea of an asymmetrical ruffle because I don't know, I just feel like that's something my mom would like. And I was thinking about that, and I thought I had was instead of using like the whole length of the bottom to get the diameter, what if I divided that into four? So then I'd have four small ruffles, and then it would have that like asymmetrical aspect that you see more often. And then I think also if the radius of the circle is less, that it is a little more flouncy. So I'm gonna try that, do a little pattern for that, and then cut that out. Um, and then I'll sew those pieces together, but I'm just gonna pin it onto the thing for right now because I don't really want to have to sew it again. And then if I like how that is, then I will do the mock-up for the skirt before trying to make all the pieces full size. So something I just want to say, as it stands right now, my thought a little bit is I was going to do a mock-up for the full size things as well. I just it's not even like I don't want to. This uses up a lot of fabric. Right now I used some muslin. I have bed sheets that I have, but it just doesn't like sit the best with my soul that it feels like I'm using up a lot of fabric that might not have a use again. So I'm thinking for some of the bigger pieces, I might just do like a lot of basting to see if I like how things look. If I do trust that on the mini that it is fine. So I will get to that part later, but that is just a thought that I have right now. So I'm gonna try to do the ruffle, see how I feel about it, and then if I do like it, work on the skirt, and then see if I can upsize it with technology or if I'm gonna have to do it by hand. Okay, so I did the mock up for the first look, and originally I think I said that I was gonna just gather or like do a big skirt piece and gather it to see what it will look like with the shearing. I ended up doing a circle skirt, and I multiplied the circumference by 1.5 because I think that's roughly how much the shearing is going to take the fabric in, and I measured a shirt that I've used shearing on before to roughly get that idea. I will say I was using the measurement for my waist instead of my hip, and so the skirt didn't go all the way. So that also means a little bit that I might need to just draft the skirt and the yoke by hand. But now, yeah. And oh, but I did that because I wanted it to be flowy because I really wanted this to be something that like you could go wear dancing, and it like really works well with like the twirling movement and stuff that comes with dancing. So Now, what I'm gonna do is seam rip apart this and this. This is also a little long, but I think that if I connected the edges that it would actually fit. Um, so I'm gonna seam rip apart these, take a picture of them on my cutting mat, and then put them into Illustrator, and then hopefully figure out how to make this a pattern that is full size by just doubling my measurements. Um, because I've seen some people do it online. I'm probably gonna definitely have to look into it more because I haven't used Illustrator that much. But doing it on my cutting mat will give a size guide since they're like inch squares, so then I can make sure things are correct. So I don't know. That's gonna be the time. I'm gonna try to figure that out, then hopefully print out the pattern pieces for this, and then I will just do a full size pattern, most likely for this by hand. Okay, so I made a pattern that I could print. I do think it looks a little big. I just measured it some and it's off. I think it's not like off because I did a test square that is 2 inches, but I think it's just a little bigger than it should be. So I was gonna add seam allowance because I did not add seam allowance, as you could tell, because this was a whole process, and I'd love to go through more of what this entails, but just not right now when I am still so new to it. I also just shout out one of my friends because she really helped me. So thank you. But she helped me with scaling the image. And so yeah, and I think also some of my images, I don't think I took the pictures correctly. Like I don't know if the camera was as even as it should have been. So either way, um, it does seem a little bigger, so I'm just gonna cut it out first, and then after I have the pieces cut out, if maybe scale them down a little bit, um, and then from there I'll cut out the pieces and I will baste together to see how it fits. But I guess also more specifically in where it's a little big is the back, for example. I think it should be roughly 22 inches and it's more like 24, and that will add up into being too much ease. So I think it'll be easier to like really make sure the measurements are where I want them to be after I cut out the pieces. So, and I think for the front, I didn't exactly measure, but I think it's also roughly 24, which would just be like in total a lot bigger than I need it to be for my measurements. So I will cut those out, adjust, and then see if I need to adjust the flounce or just redraw it. Also, the reason why I have so many like of what it is because I didn't add numbers. So I was like, okay, I'll just have it so when I'm lining it up, I can at least see like, okay, this should be this piece. But there's a lot of to learn and experiment with Illustrator and the Adobe Suite in general. It's just kind of hard. So, but I do think this is interesting and I would love to play with it more. I think it also makes a little bit of sense that it might be too big because I did a square that was an inch by an inch to line it up with the grid of the cutting mat, and there were times where I feel like the pictures weren't taken like straight on, that I couldn't get the square exactly lined up in some cases, so it wasn't like that much bigger, but that does add up some. So I don't know. There's things that I can improve in the future. Blazes on the cabinet, which is why I'm looking over. But yeah, so I'm gonna cut this out, and then I'm actually gonna draft by hand the pattern for the skirt, and I will go over that once I have that pattern drafted, and then I will cut out pieces and start sewing. Okay, I have my pattern pieces for the top cut out, so I'm gonna get ready and baste. I'm planning on putting a zipper on the short side because I feel like a side zipper is easier to zip up. So I think I'm also gonna baste in a dark color thread. That way, if I do like how it fits, I don't have to go back through and seam rip it to redo it. Yeah, I think those are the main things. I think I said I adjusted the pattern a little bit. I took off, it kind of varied from piece to piece, but I don't know. It wasn't too far off, but I think just in scaling it up in Illustrator, I was off a little bit. So if in the future I'm doing this, I'll definitely have to play around more with making sure that I have like correct guides. But yeah, I'm gonna baste and then see how it looks and go from there. I guess also, well, two other things. I haven't cut out the lining or the ruffle pieces yet because I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have to make too many changes and I didn't want to have to like change the lining the same way, instead of maybe being able to say like if I have to change the lining I can Sorry, the microphone is just like on my neck. And I'm still trying to get this sorted. So also if the audio, I've been playing around with different audio settings, but if any feedback on how things sound would be greatly appreciated. Um, but I think I was just saying that um, I kind of lost my train of thought. But for Illustrator, I just need to work on being able. Oh, okay. Sorry. I was like, what was I saying? I didn't cut out the lining or the ruffle yet. I mean, the lining I could have cut out and just made the same changes if I need to. But for the ruffle, I wanted to be sure that the size, like, of the length, because right now for the length of the pattern pieces, it should fit. But I just, like, if I have to take things in more, then I might need to adjust the radius. So I'm going to wait until I see how this looks and then go from there. Okay, I basted together the top. So here's what we're looking like. I think it's pretty good. I think that the pattern needed to be taken in some, but I could have left seam allowance. But because this fabric is a little stretchy, it kind of creates negative ease, which is needed for something that's like strapless. So I think that it worked out. I feel like the back is rolling some a little bit. I don't know, but it does still fit pretty well. And I think once I have the lining, it will be better. I'm also not going to put in a zipper because I could get it over my head. I think it'd be a little bit easier to do no zipper. So I'm going to cut out the ruffle pieces and then cut out the lining. I'm going to try to line it in the same fabric if I have enough, but if I don't, then I'll just find a different fabric. And then I'm going to keep the basting stitches in for sewing. If I can, I'll seam rip them, but if some of them get caught, then it'll just be, which is why I basted in black, because I thought it'd be easier to baste it and then sew it from here instead of having to try it, or instead of having to seam rip it and then pin it to sew it. So all of that to say, I'm going to start sewing, and then after I'll sew the lining, and then I'm going to try to understitch and probably leave the bottom. Yeah. I think, I don't know. I think sew the lining to the top and then understitch it, and then, but leave the bottom open, and then attach the ruffle, and that will be what closes it, I think. So yeah, I'm gonna get ready and cut some stuff and sew, and then we'll see from there. Okay, so I finished the top for the most part. I just have to hem the ruffle, which I'm just going to do a rolled hem on the whole thing. I had a bed sheet. I actually am going to try to do the burn test on this, not this, but like a scrap piece, because technically for natural fabrics, it should burn, and like plastics that are like fabrics that are plastic based will melt. And the bed sheet said that it was 100% cotton, and I was just curious to see. This is not to say like cotton versus polyester, which one is better, because that is like, one, I don't feel like I'm well versed enough in fabric, like textile knowledge, to like really have like say much. But I also think that it's just a little more nuanced than just like this one bad. I guess now I'm going to share my opinions, even though I just said that I'm not that qualified. But I think that at least from like some of the things that I've seen, there are uses for both. There are also cons to both. And I do think that a lot of companies use polyester as like the cheaper route, but I don't know if the solution is just use cotton instead. So like, I don't know. And I want to learn more about textiles, and I have a book on that as well. But I'm just curious to see if it really like truly is cotton, and I've never tried the burn test on anything before. So all that to say, I'm going to do that, and I will show that when I do it. But for the pattern for the skirt, this is the yoke. I'm going to line everything because it's a little sheer. So as you can tell, this is bigger than my waist. And there's two pieces. I am hoping this is like my waist measurement times 1.5 because I think that's roughly how much the shearing should take it in. I actually did like 1 or 2 inches off of my waist just in case. But yeah, so this is the yoke piece, and it also curves a little bit, so it will like in theory fit my waist but then flare out to my hip size. And for the outer piece, I did a circle skirt, but I made the radius the size that I used for the yoke. So also not my waist measurement or my hip measurement, but and there's two pieces to this as well. So I'm hoping that like this is already really flowy, but once it's gathered with the from the shearing from the yoke, that'll even like make it even flowier. But since it is sheer, the way that I'm lining it is I created this trapezoid, and my thought process is that this top part will come in and will be roughly in line with the bottom, so it'll just be kind of like a straight rectangle instead of having more body under the skirt if I'd like done a second circle or if I'd done just like a full rectangle. So I hope this works out. I will say I I think it'd be easiest to connect the yoke before I do the shearing. So I'm probably gonna sew like the whole skirt and then do the shearing and hope, like fingers crossed, that it will work out how I want it to. I will say, because this is a thrifted bed sheet that I wasn't even gonna actually use as fabric, I don't think I'll be like the most heartbroken if it doesn't work. I probably won't do like every row shearing before. Like I'll probably like do like 2 or 3 rows to first like get an idea. Do I think this is gonna work before I do like the rest? But yeah, so I'm gonna construct the skirt by sewing the lining, the top part, and then the yoke, and then connecting it all. And then afterwards, I will do the shearing. I will also do the burn test just to see if this is cotton, but also just to see what the burn test, how it works. Okay, I have a piece. I have a lighter. Fun fact, I'm really bad at lighting the like thumb down lighter, which is why I keep like this type. I also like really don't like fire, but we're gonna see what happens. I also have a little thing of water to put it out with, and just in case if things go bad. Well, I guess that proves correct that this is cotton. That actually is just really interesting because I've always seen people talk about it, and I'm like, why? It's not that I like don't care about fabric, but it's just not something I think and worry about too much right now as I buy fabric. And so that is interesting to see, and it's burnt, and it smells like burnt. Like I don't know. Some people say that like polyester will smell or polyester or other synthetic fabrics will smell like burnt plastic, whereas like this doesn't smell like that. So the more you know. If you want to test your fabric for content, you can burn it a little bit, but be careful if you do that. Okay, I did some test on the shearing. I kind of thought about not testing it because I've sheared once before, and part of me was like, "You're better than this." And it's a great thing that I did, and I had an issue that I want to share because just in case if anyone else ever runs into this issue, just so you can know. These are some, not all, of my test strips. This was the first one, and then afterwards there was some of the like shearing effect, but like you can see on this one and this one there was so little, and I was taking note of just like what stitch length and what tension, if I wound the bobbin tight or like loose, because the last time I sheared, I went back and referenced my video, I used I think a stitch length of 5 and a tension of 7, And I just felt like I was losing my mind. I'm like, I've watched all these tutorials, I'm reading articles on how to troubleshoot, I'm winding the bobbin tightly, not. And then I found a Reddit post where someone had the same issue. And someone maybe mentioned it in one of the YouTube videos that I saw. There's a part in your bobbin, if you have a top loading bobbin, which I do. I also have a machine that's a front loading, but I don't use that one often. And you have to make sure that the elastic thread is going through there. And I think with how just like with like the like stretchiness of it, sometimes it doesn't, and that was my issue. So for my final one, I tried 3 different tensions, and I was like, okay, I think this is good enough that once I do it on the full thing, it'll be fine. But if you take off your bobbin cover, if you can see right here, there's this little notch, and that's where the thread goes through, and mine wasn't going through that, and that was causing it, like regardless of which stitch length or tension or how tight the bobbin was, to just not have any of the effect. So just so you know, if you ever run into that issue, make sure you check that as well, because I would have not, I wouldn't have thought to have checked that. So yeah, I'm gonna shear the waistband and then hope that it goes in as much as I want, and then afterwards I will hem. Thanks for watching. I really hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow me on my social medias. Some things that I would have done different with this if I were to remake it again. For the top, because I used a stretch fabric, I could have taken off a little bit out of each seam just to have a little more negative ease, so it would have fit a little tighter. I think it still does fit and it fits pretty well, but just if it was a little more snug, I would have liked that. And then for the skirt, for the lining, I I feel like I shouldn't have done a trapezoid shape. I probably should have like curved out that edge a little bit more. So I think it's still fine, but yeah, those are just some changes that I would have made or would make if I were doing it again, but I still do like how it turned out and I love how it fits into the collection. So comment down below how you like it and if comment what your go-to party or club outfit is or was and stay tuned for the rest of the collection, and until next time, bye guys.